Hello everybody. Nice to see you, Wendy.
Hello, Catherine. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. You've got a lovely tan. You've been away, haven't you?
I have. I've been away. I've been very lucky this year. I've been to see my sister in Montana. I've been to Sardinia with my daughter. And I've just come back from Greece with my husband. So, yeah.
So how are you feeling then, Wendy?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling refreshed, and I'm feeling ready to get back into it after my holiday. So, yeah, raring to go, Catherine, as always.
Jolly good. Well, I'm smiling too. And at the end, we'll see why. I know Wendy knows, but at the end, we'll see why I've got a particular grin this evening. So we're here to talk about feelings and life skills. And I just wondered whether I just wanted to start with this statement. What sort of adult are we supporting the child to become? Because I think that's our role, isn't it, in early years?
Yes, definitely. Our role in early years is to provide support for children, to make them confident adults, to make them self-assured, to make them self-confident, to make them develop friendships more easily. There's numerous. There's a list as long as my arm, but the benefits of teaching children how to be emotionally resilient is key today.
I agree.
Well, it's key. It's key always. But of course, when I was little and my parents, they didn't have the understanding that we do today. And even when I was bringing up my children 30 years ago, I didn't have the understanding that I have today. It was only when I started childminding, really, that personal, social, and emotional awareness kicked in. I started to understand the importance of children's emotional well-being and how that they're really human people with brains and they tick. And it was fascinating for me. It was fascinating for me to see how they developed under my care.
I have a game that I play, and I'm not going to play it this evening.
Games.
It's a game that I play with practitioners and parents, actually. Although, I mean, I'll just comment on what you said, though, because although we know a lot about resilience and how to support children and how important feelings are, parents of today don't. So I think we have a big role there to play to help them understand that their child is kicking off and how they can support their child in a better way to avoid that happening.
It's very difficult, though, isn't it, Catherine? Because I was thinking about it today when I was thinking ahead to this debate, and how difficult it is because people, families, there's not just one child in many. There's 2, 3, maybe even 4 or more. It's very difficult to be to continue that. What am I trying to say? To be what's that word when you continue to do something all the time? But you've got 4 children, and it's very difficult to have the wherewithal at times when you're tired and you're feeling frustrated,
rushed,
not to kick off, but to take each one of them as they have their tantrums or they're upset, to get yourself into that position where you can take them to one side and gentle parent. It's very difficult because parents are like plate spinners, aren't they? They've got all these children and they're trying to keep their children balanced. And it's trying to be, I keep forgetting that word, consistent. It's trying to be consistent all the time, because sometimes you might think, I'll give gentle parenting a whirl today. And you take them to one side, and I can see you're upset, and I understand, and I'm there for you, and I need you to try and explain what's happening and why you're upset. That's not always easy to get into that frame of mind, especially when you've got 3, 4 or more children. Do you see what I'm saying?
I certainly do. And actually, it's the same in nursery. You know, nurseries can be very pressured, and preschools can be very pressured. I mean, we've gone down for 2-year-olds, for example, down or up, from a 1-to-4 ratio, a 1-to-4 ratio to a 1-to-5 ratio, you know, and the pressures of the dynamic.
Is it as much as that now, 1-to-5?
It can be. You can choose to have 1-to-5 for 2-year-olds in nurseries now. So, you know, I think as adults, as practitioners, as professionals, it's really important that we understand our own feelings and our own pressures, and we're supported by the people that we work with in the team and outside the team to keep us regulated.
Yes, exactly. Because how can we co-regulate a child who's in need when we're not regulated ourselves? So that's what I have learned today, to regulate myself when I'm speaking to my own children who are in their 30s, but they still need me as a sounding board. Okay. And I have to switch myself into the right place and the right space to be able to
yes, that's a good point. Maybe I don't with my 30-year-olds. Maybe I don't. Maybe that's where I'm going. Anyway, well, let's get back to early, shall we? What I was going to say about my game is that in this exercise that I do is I encourage people to think about something in their early childhood that affects their adult life. And they don't have to share it at all. But I am pretty sure that, first of all, generally practitioners remember something negative that happened to them, whereas parents don't necessarily have it's not the same proportion. It's about 50-50 with parents, whereas with practitioners it tends to be it can be 80-90% of practitioners that bring up a negative experience that affected their adult life, which I think is really interesting.
That is interesting.
But I am sure whether they be negative or positive, actually, the actual experience they remember is all around their feelings at the time about that incident. And for me as a child, I had very Victorian, I still do. I don't see him very often. He lives in Australia. I have a very Victorian a father figure who was brought up almost in the Victorian era. I mean, he's in his 90s. And my mother, who's also still alive, she didn't. I don't mean to be disrespectful towards her, but it was the extended family that brought me up from a mother's point of view. My mother worked full time on the farm. I'm a farmer. But I was never allowed to have feelings. I feel I was never allowed to have feelings. You know, I almost got told off for expressing how I felt. I had a chip on my shoulder. I was mini Mona. You know, labels that were given to me. And I'm very much a heart on the sleeves person. I say everything. I do express I've always expressed how I feel. But for a child, you know, if they're not able, I mean, obviously this is when I was older, because we don't remember very much before the age of 6, according to research. You know, this is obviously when I was older. Those are the memories that I have very much. And I think we have to be really careful with little children, because they're not going to remember. They're not going to remember, you know, the crossword that a practitioner said or how their parent reacted to whatever scenario. So they're not going to be able to justify it or make themselves feel better about it, but it's still affect their adult life.
But there comes a time that they will remember, like 6+. I mean, my father really should have known better. He was a psychiatrist, and he was an authority on special educational needs and autism, and yet he treated us very, very badly. And later on in life, when I questioned him about it, he said that it was something called reverse psychology, and that the reason he told us to repeat every day as children that we were fat, lazy and stupid was so that we wouldn't be fat, lazy and stupid. And we're not. None of us are fat, lazy or stupid, but what a gamble. I mean, what a gamble. I'll tell you what we are though, Catherine, we're all broken. We're broken in some respect, the four of us. One of us didn't survive.
No.
But it's so effective what your parents and your carers say to you. And when you are old enough to remember it, it stays with you forever. And that's one of the reasons I think that, because they say the abuse, don't they? But I went totally the other way with my children, and I tried to love, well, obviously I did love them, just tried to be so different from my father by telling my children that they were special, they were clever, they were funny, they were charming, you know, and all of those things. And they have turned out to be all of those things as well. I just think he was a bit mad, actually.
And I think there was a time, actually, even, I mean, I've been in early years over 50 years, right? And I think there was a time when we used to say to children, oh, scream then, you know, do scream, you know, go outside though and do it in the garden. But you can scream if you like, you know, scream as much as you want. But we never really, and in those times, we never really thought about the child's feelings. It was doing to the child's like behaviour management. You know, we managed children's behaviour.
A lot of it was very controlling as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, do as I do, not as I say.
Yes, exactly. So thank goodness, what I mean to say now is that thank goodness that things have changed and things are changing. And I don't know about you, Catherine, but I do notice people in supermarkets or just walking in the park with their kids who are doing their best with this gentle parenting. And I notice it and I see it and I think that's lovely. How they're talking to their children, and so they are learning.
Yeah,
I see it more and more often, actually.
Okay, so let's get off parents. I think I'm not an expert in this at all, but you know, we have feelings because of something that is done to our bodies. Really, it's our body's response to external stimuli, you know, whether that be a lovely letter through the post or a brown envelope through the post, right? whether I can have that toy, whether I can play with my friends, or am I excluded? And it's a bodily response that children go into without, particularly the very young ones that don't have the language or any resilience yet, you know. And I do, although I do think that practitioners need to understand this a little bit better, that it's not just about behaviour, it's how the body is responding naturally, the flight and fight scenario that the brain is doing.
Exactly. I think you're talking about the limbic system in the brain, which controls emotions and threats, and children have that from birth. The frontal cortex, which is the thinking side of the brain and the rationalizing side of the brain, takes years to develop. And that's why when you tell a little child off, or you get angry with them, as you say, that it's fight or flight, and they'll either fight and they'll lash out, or they'll run away. You know, you see kids that you're telling them off, and they'll run, they'll hide, and others will want to attack you. And it's very difficult for them because they don't know any better. So it's up to us then to try and regulate their feelings and try and talk to them, label their emotions, all the things that we hear today, labeling their emotions, don't yell at them. Also, you know, there are hitting is a no-no. You know, you don't hit. Let's hit a cushion. Let's stomp our feet.
Be kind to your friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as an adult, whether you'll be in a nursery or a childminder or a parent, it's important that we consciously model our own feelings and what we're going to do about it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's making me feel a bit cross.
Yes.
I think I'll just go over here and calm down a bit.
Yes.
And I'll come back to it in a minute and do it.
Yes.
Try and do it then if I'm feeling a bit frustrated.
It's role modeling, isn't it? And that is part of co-regulating, teaching children or showing children how you would react in as, you know, mum is really disappointed today because she didn't get that job. But another one will come along, I'm sure of it. So yes, it's showing disappointment, but yes, it's showing the positive side of that as well. So yeah, that's another thing that's important. Not to dump on your kid and I didn't get the job, but just to show, yes, mummy, daddy, carers can feel disappointment, they can feel sad, but to add that positivity to it as well, so that it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah. And then we've got children that are feeling, you know, their bodies are taking over, basically fight or flight, and reacting to whatever it is, clash of wills or whatever. They want that, you know, and they can't have it. And that's all very well in the moment. But there's also lots of activities we can do to bring in the naming of feelings, how perhaps through stories, for example. Angry Arthur comes to mind.
Yeah.
And persona dolls. Do you know? Have you had any experience?
I've heard of them. Yes, I have heard of them.
Persona dolls is where you give a special doll, which looks more like, it's not a doll like you would have in the home corner. It's a doll that looks more like a real person. You give them a persona, you know, they're this age, this is their name, they wear real clothes. And then you talk about their problem. So you get they've got a name, they might be from another culture, and you talk about, you know, so whatever their name is really worried today because this is what's happening at home, and the children help solve their problems. What could, you know, he's asking, you know, what could we do? What could he do? How could he be helped? And that's quite a good way of getting children to reflect perhaps on their own situations.
Absolutely.
Not talk about their own situation, but reflect on the persona doll's situation. And
it helps them to realise that that others have feelings, and it also helps to develop empathy and understanding for other people.
Yeah, and the language that goes with it, because you know, we learn, the children point, don't they? You know, oh, you want the boat, or oh, you want this from the shelf, or you want to go in the garden. They can't actually do that for feelings, you know, as such.
No.
I know you have a tool which we'll see later, but you know, they can't. And some children I think somebody told me we shouldn't actually always presume that they have the feeling we think they have, particularly children with special educational needs. But they might not actually have very much expression, and they might actually be feeling really happy inside, but we read it as that they're being sad or they've got concern.
That's why it's always good to ask, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? But, you know, I think as well, a lot of the time is, I think there's one thing that really upsets children and adults, anyone, and that is when your expectations aren't met. When you believe something's going to happen and it doesn't. You were expecting to go to McDonald's after school, but you didn't. You're expecting to have a nice lolly after dinner, and there aren't any, and you didn't. So it's a lot of the time, it's usually 90% of the time, people and children get upset because their expectations aren't met. Like the mum who didn't get her job.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, that's interesting you should say that. I mean, routines are really important, aren't they, to children? It gives them that peace of mind.
And again, routines are expectations, aren't they? They're expecting to do this, and that's why it's very.
So it's the adult actually putting in those wrong expectations, isn't it? That they're going to get on a regular basis.
Those expectations are coming from somewhere. Absolutely, yes.
It's really.
And that's why the child gets upset with that person who has set those expectations and hasn't met those expectations. And then the unfairness and the injustice comes in.
Yeah, and it's really the adult's fault, isn't it? Because they've made that situation.
Yeah, okay. I mean, but, you know, again, it's a day-to-day thing, right? Well, you know, we'll go to McDonald's after that, and then who knows what's going to happen as to why they can't suddenly go to. But I think that to McDonald's, but then I think that just has to be explained.
Yeah, well in advance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Especially for children with autism who really do rely on a routine, a set routine. A lot of them, I mean, that was a bit of a blanket statement, but a lot of children with autism do rely on routine.
Yeah, absolutely. Now and next, isn't it? So my perspective in a nursery, the last time I went to China, I looked around what was to be an EYFS school. Now that's really unusual in China, all right? And they had actually some beautiful equipment. They weren't able to practice the EYFS because they didn't understand it, but they had some beautiful equipment. And I was actually quite impressed because they actually had cozy corners. They had a tent where the children could go and hide inside, where they could go and hide, and those sorts of spaces for children to chill out outside the hustle and bustle, or even at home, you know, in a home scenario where they can take themselves off to their bedroom, which should not be a horrible place.
No.
You know, to support their regulation.
Going to your bedroom should never be a punishment.
No, exactly. Certainly was in my era, and yours, I suspect, Wendy.
Absolutely.
And the naughty step has gone, hopefully, and the naughty chair has gone as well. While we're on the subject,
horrible,
because they don't actually. It's again, it's a way of managing.
Yes, it's controlling, isn't it?
Yeah, rather than helping them understand what's going on. And of course, I mean, learning and development is very much my thing. That children who have worries, who are not feeling secure, who are not feeling safe, are not going to learn anything, are they? And that's what's so sad about school, really. in my nurseries, I don't have them anymore, but in my nurseries, it was around, we wanted children to feel confident, self-motivated learners. I didn't turn my emails off, so I apologise for the noise. And that was actually much more important. That is about being school ready, because then the children can actually achieve something at school rather than comply and not feel, because they don't feel confident and they're not able to cope.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
So, okay. So we've talked about routines and space, and we've talked about ratios. I've got a little list down here just in case. I don't actually know about how which is something that perhaps I need to go, because I've also been thinking about this evening about how feelings are dealt with in other cultures. I don't know anything. Right, we're doing all the talking here, Wendy. What about people on the chat? What do they think? And do you agree with us, disagree with us? Got any points you'd like to bring into the conversation? Please do join in. I know, there are cultures that are very strict. You're not allowed to look at an adult, for example.
I don't know. I haven't really had the experience, even though I was a childminder for 20 odd years. I suppose the strictest was a Russian family.
All right.
And they were very, very strict. And the child spoke when he was spoken to, and he was quite regimented in when he slept and when he ate.
That's the same as in China.
Yes. So yes, but behind closed doors, all that goes out the window, and we just had a wonderful time.
Yeah. But I think I'm bringing it into conversation and confessing, because I do think it's something that educators need to think about and consider. We talked about supporting parents earlier on in the conversation, and I do think a lot of parents don't really understand a child's feelings and how to help their child, even if we see a lot of the parents doing it in the park. I think on the whole, parents don't understand, just as they don't understand that children need to learn a lot of little skills before they can write their name.
Yes.
Yes. And what am I trying to say? I'm just saying, just for the record, really, that I think it's something that we should look into about different cultures and how they react to certain situations, because actually they may need our support and our help. And we shouldn't presume actually that we're superior and that we know. No, we can perhaps learn quite a lot from other people.
And there are more and more schools and nurseries, multicultural schools and nurseries. So, how do you think that would be implemented? What would be a way to implement that? How would you implement that in one of your nursery schools?
Well, I think the relationship with the parents starts when they come to look round, and that needs to be built, even if the baby isn't born yet. And if that could be established really early, so you establish that relationship. And when the child begins, I think it's important that you have a conversation with the parent about the child's likes and dislikes and what do they do at home and how do they deal with that at home and why do they do it like that. I think that would be quite a natural conversation without being threatening to anybody.
Yes.
And it's exactly the same with adults, actually. Members of staff all come with their own baggage, all come with their own beliefs and their own ethos, which I think is something important to talk about before actually employed. I had a saying: you need to be on our bus. If you're not on our bus, you're going to get run over by somebody else, on the road. Because if we're not all working together with the
Yeah.
same aims and goals, even if we have different opinions, we have to find a way through that. Then that's confusing for children, and
Yeah, I think
nobody feels it. Nobody feels worthwhile. Nobody feels they're achieving anything.
It's about respect, isn't it? It's about respect and understanding all parents. Yeah, not just those from other cultures, but for all parents and for whatever circumstances they might be in, whether they're single, they're out of work, what have you, you've got to be there. I mean, as a childminder, I was there for the parents as well as the children. And I think that really did help a lot. They became friends and they trusted me.
Yeah. And I think that's really important in early years settings too. I personally don't feel enough emphasis is put upon supporting families. The EYFS says the parent is really important, but I don't feel I'm being very judgmental this evening, aren't I? And I'm making sweeping statements. There are always exceptions to the rule.
I think it's very important for the child to see the relationship between their carer and their parents, because for them to look at the two of you and to think, oh, they're friends, well, that's really reassuring.
Absolutely. And that's actually been proven as good for their future mental health, actually, Wendy, that they don't see their lives in silos, that they actually see their life as a joined up, everybody's joined up.
Yes, as a family.
Yeah, and that's why I feel that settings need to put a lot of effort into that. It's hard work, and my job is to look after the child, but I don't think you can do that without involving the parents. That's there's a bit of a soapbox with me, so I apologise. So let's talk about visual cues then. So we've got 2-year-olds that don't have any language around how they feel, or they have very limited language about how they feel. You can talk about your mood stars, Wendy. Tell us about your mood stars. Tell us how they came about. And
the mood stars came about when I was a childminder, and the EYFS came in around about 2012, 2014.
Yeah, 12.
Something around there. And we had to implement and evidence different areas of learning. And one of those areas was a little bit, well, we'd never really heard of it. It was called PSED, and it was personal, social, and emotional development. And we thought, what is that? How do we implement it? How do we evidence it? There were things on line that you could buy, but they were expensive, big puppet dolls and stuff. So I set about making these little stars that had little jingly bells in them.
All right.
And sending them out to fellow childminders so that they could be put in story sacks, and when they were Ofsteded, they could prove that they were implementing
some of the PSED.
And I wrote a little activity sheet as well to go with the mood stars. But of course, they were very popular, and I was sewing and sewing and sewing and sewing and sewing. Anyway, in 2016, my Ofsted inspector came to see me, and he saw these in the playroom, and he said, "Oh, you've got these mood stars that I've been seeing." And I said, "Oh, yes, they're mine. I made them. I developed them." And he said, "Well, there's a huge market for something like that. If you do," we've talked about me retiring. "If you do really retire, good luck. But if you don't, and you've thought about further developing this product." So 2 years later, when I was meant to retire, when I retired from childminding, I sourced 6 factories in China, whittled them down to 2 because I wanted to make sure that they were green and sustainable and there weren't children working there and they were, you know, and good quality materials. And that's when it all kicked off, really. And the mood stars were invented.
So how are they used then, Wendy?
Well, they have let me just grab it. They have all the expressions that children easily relate to. So we've got happy and sad and worried and shy and silly and angry, worried and scared. And the activity sheet that comes with the stars has different games that you can play. For example, even just making the face that the sad star is making, or why do you think he's sad? What makes you think he's sad? And of course, they can see the big tear, and the angry star is, you know, face is down and the eyebrows.
Really cross because I haven't got my stars out. I've actually got stars in this room. I haven't got them out. But I mean, they're lovely. I mean, I have visiting children, and they love talking, either not necessarily always talking because they're not all that old, but being able to point to the different moods of the stars are expressing, and putting them together so they're kissing the happy star is kissing the sad star.
Yes, they make up so many different scenarios. And a lot of children talk to the stars. There's this story that I tell a lot about my niece who was talking to the mood stars after school, and she was saying to sad star, "Why are you sad? Were you sitting on the buddy chair at school and nobody came to sit with you?" And of course, my sister-in-law, her ears were like, "Oh, what's going on?" And this was something that my niece wasn't going to say to my sister-in-law, but she was quite happy to say to sad star. So of course my sister-in-law, hearing this, was able to go to the school and was able to sort it out. So they really do empower children to talk. They help children to divulge things that they might not normally say to their parents or carers. So when children are playing with the mood stars, it's very important to listen out because you might just pick up on something that's really interesting.
There are other resources out there. I've seen pebbles with faces on, for example, that are used.
My good friend Susan Harvey makes some lovely emotion stones.
Oh, okay. Somebody else does gnomes. I haven't studied
That's
them.
Susan Harvey.
That is her, is it? Are they on stones then?
They are stones, yeah.
Oh, they are stones. Okay. All right.
And they're lovely.
Yeah. I can remember when the YFS came out and buying a load of dolls that had different expressions, and we kept them in the staff room. They used to revolve around the nursery. I think that was the first. I mean, we already were using desirable learning outcomes or whatever they were, and we already had our curriculum, which is linked to our software. But it was a time, wasn't it, when people started to appreciate, oh, I've used pebbles before and mood stars. There's somebody in the chat. Is anybody else?
Yes, Les. She used to have pebbles before my mood stars. Les, she's a dear friend, and she does have my mood stars. She's a very talented person who works with children. She does a lot of therapy with them, and the stories that she tells and the testaments that she says on LinkedIn are just amazing. I mean, she just does such amazing work. I really recommend her to anybody who's listening to this on recording or live, that if their children are struggling, to go and see Les Roberts, because she's absolutely amazing.
It's lovely to hear, Wendy. The point I'm trying to bring in here is that we can have resources that actually help and support children. We don't always have to do it outside, from our own experiences or our own modelling.
And I think that helps.
And listening to children in the home corner, actually, how they are playing with the dolls or the animals or whatever, it could be in the floor play, is often quite a good indicator of how they're feeling or how they have felt. They are acting out.
Yes.
Scenarios.
Because that's why I wanted to make the Mood Stars soft toys, because children talk to their toys. They do. And you've probably seen with children talking to the Mood Stars that you have, and I know that Les has, that kids are drawn to them immediately. They get
why have you not got bells in these ones then?
Safety.
Okay, that makes sense.
So if they were torn and then a child got a bell in their
throat
mouth, that wouldn't be good. They've been these would not be allowed. They're too small, so they fit down a kitchen roll tube, so that's no good. So they're a choking hazard. They've got the bells in them. So it's just as well that I brought out the that I had the Mood Stars tested. So there are no bells. They're Velcro receptive, as you know, so they just stick to the scratchy side of Velcro. You don't have to have the board. You can have a Velcro strip in your nursery or home that these stars will just pop on and off.
We're going to see all the Mood Stars in a minute. At the end, we're going to see them all. So we'll show.
Put them away, Wendy. Put them away.
Well, no, I'm not going to put them away. I'm being. Okay, put them away, Wendy. The other thing I think is important, which we have sort of mentioned, but maybe we need to make a little bit more of it, is checking in with children during the day. Routine times. How's this morning? Perhaps at snack time. How's this morning been? And how did you feel about that? And bring in the conversations with an adult. That's when you could add new words, isn't it, into perhaps.
Yes, and to talk about your own feelings at that time as well.
Or linking the fact that their tummy was fluttering because they were so excited, or their heart was going because they were so excited, or perhaps feeling sick because they're a bit worried.
And where those feelings might be, because it's not always where you think they are. Sometimes they feel it in their shoulders, or they feel it in their knees, or they feel it in their head. Now,
I'm not very good at that. I've decided I'm not really in tune with my body at all. I don't recognize. I might recognize, a fluttering stomach because I'm a bit nervous or something, but I don't recognize anything else.
You don't get a headache if you're feeling a bit nervous?
I do get headaches, but I don't ever connect them. I connect them with stress after the event generally, or being tired, or not eating properly. But the point I'm trying to make is that I was never taught to recognize that. I was never, and I think nowadays it's really important that children are in tune with what their body is trying to tell them. They might not have a word for it, but they can say, my heart's going, or I'm feeling lumpy, or whatever.
One of them used to say to me, my tummy feels giddy.
Hey, that's lovely. Lovely that's a lovely way of expressing it, better than I can. And then they can attach. Well, is that because you're feeling nervous? Is that because you're anxious? Is that because you're excited?
And that's when all these words come in.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then hopefully a child can express how they feel rather than express it physically as well.
Yeah, I think the more you use words to talk about yourself, because children watch you all the time, they listen to you all the time, they observe you all the time, and they copy you. So once you start using those words, they'll start to think, well, excited, that's that's probably what I've been feeling.
I think these things though these words are different. I think we have to take that on board. These are not concrete, are they? They're not, they're very abstract.
Yes.
And they're not like naming particular toys or particular animals or particular bits of furniture. They're more abstract, and that's where I think your stars or pebbles or dolls that have different expressions are a really good resource to have to help the children with those emotions, really.
Yes.
It's a bit like learning your colours. But learning colours is quite difficult as well, because they're very they're different to objects, aren't they?
Yes, but again, they're very abstract. It's funny. I said the same thing on my LinkedIn post today.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I had time to read LinkedIn today.
No, I said exactly the same thing about learning colours. So that was funny.
But we, as educators, rightly or wrongly, it's a big milestone, learning your colours. It's seen as a good thing, but we don't necessarily see emotions in the same context. They're not seen, although they are probably more important. I don't think in a child development way they're necessary.
Not yet. I think we're getting there. Maybe not in early years, but in primary school they've got their zones of regulation. Not that I'm a huge fan, but it seems to be taking effect. For early years children, they don't know what a zone is.
No,
they can't wrap their head around what a zone is. It's too wishy-washy for them. So I think for early years children, they need something that is very relatable. There's no distraction of race, age, gender, just the expressions. And I think that's how my mood stars are so helpful, because they don't have any confusion. It's just the star with the expressions. It's not no male, no female, no whatever, all the same colour, and so much more easier to understand. And that's one of the reasons that I made them like they were. I didn't want a girl star or a boy star or, an old star or a young star.
People in the chat, people that are listening to us this evening, would you like to bring in some of your comments? And then we'll wrap up. Have you found it interesting? Is there anything I've said that you disagree with? It's generally me when we have these debates. I'm quite happy. I'm quite thick-skinned.
I might answer that for me.
I might say things, and it might not be very well explained. So I would encourage you to, dear, you're all being very quiet. Does that mean that we're talking a lot of rubbish, or does that mean you agree with us?
Somebody say something.
Let me just look down my list. Let's see if is there anything else on your list that you wanted to bring in.
No. I think that I've covered. I think we've covered quite a lot.
We have actually. We have.
Yeah, I mean, and if there's anything that I've said that's been able to help anybody, then that's great. What I didn't want to do is come on here and teach people how to suck eggs, because I'm not an expert. I'm just a mum and an ex-childminder who is fascinated by children and their development. And I've had a really lovely time on here tonight.
Thank you. So have I. I definitely have. I will throw just one thing in before we go, because I know we've got senior members of staff that are listening to us tonight. The well-being of our teams is really important, and you're going to learn a little bit more about that in the little video that I'm going to run. So if everybody's happy, then I'm going to run the little video. Thank you very much, Wendy.